The next part zooms in on the strategic fundamentals. We talk about the strategic, organizational, and possibly architectural basis based on a number of predefined sub-themes, which governance, working methods, forms of collaboration, and other matters form the basis for business impact and growth. It is time to invite our next keynote speaker on stage. This power woman emphasizes that technology leaders can achieve remarkable results using the resources they already have in-house. Her approach does not start with technology, but always focuses on business results. Please welcome on stage Anjalie Nawaratne, VP Data Transformation and Chief Business Architect at Springer Nature Group.
Wow, it's a big stage, huh? At the moment, it feels like technology is moving at 1,000,000 miles per hour. And you'll hear some great talks today about AI and technology. My talk is a little bit different. I wanted to talk to you about how we put our focus on delivering business value, focusing on business outcome, and how we actually created a brand new asset for our organization. So I want to give you a bit of scope about the organization that I work for. I work for the Springer Nature Group. It's an academic publisher. There's a rich history. We're 180 years old. We have around 9,000 employees, and we work with a vast network of academia and scientists, editors, peer reviewers, and authors. And our real mission is advancing the discovery of science. And a little bit about me. Hi, I'm Anjalie. So when I was growing up, I didn't really know what I wanted to do. And my dad said, why don't you try computer science? And I was like, I'm not sure. He said, you know, I think tech will be something one day. So I kind of moved into that field. The early part of my career was really working in and around cross-functional and digital teams, working around a business goal, testing and learning. And I was really fortunate to be able to be part of setting up the first digital department within Springer Nature. I've always been curious, and I kind of loved those approaches that came from product development. And I thought, can this be applied at the enterprise? And I worked and moved into this business architecture role, which allowed me a really interesting perspective, a wide perspective across the organization. And one of the things I started to see about 3 or 4 years ago was there was this massive demand on data, but I was pretty sure we didn't have the capabilities of delivering on it. So I went to the C-suite, and we had a discussion, and I had an amazing Dutch boss at the time. He was he's the COO, and he said, now you've found this problem, you go fix it. And I kind of transitioned to doing the data transformation for Springer Nature. So I want to start with an example. One of the first initiatives we undertook was partnering with marketing, and it was about sending the right email to the right person at the right time. Now, this seems simple, but simple is different when you're working in a large multinational organization that has evolved through mergers and acquisitions and has a complex technology and people landscape. So one of the things we really wanted to do at the time was to make sure that we actually were meeting those business goals. So the first thing we put in place was measurement. Have you ever had to go to the executive team with some really tough numbers? Well, that was pretty much one of the first things we had to do. So the number we had was 0. And this meant that the campaigns that we were doing weren't really reaching our authors or growing our submissions or increasing our revenue. It turns out the issue we really had was we were sending all the emails to all of the people all of the time. The Springer Nature exec were faced with the reality but didn't shy away. They gave us the funding, but they said, as long as you keep measuring. And we did. In 2022, we achieved double-digit percentage increases in our incremental submissions, which led to multi-millions in revenues. But we didn't do this by buying a tool with a 3-letter acronym, like a CDP, a CRM, an MDM. We really focused on the business outcome. If you start with a massive plan to build a platform, it often builds in detractors. You get started on conversations about what's the vendor, what's the solution, which teams need to be involved. And it detracts from the real conversation. So what did we do? We started off wanting to solve the business problem, but we knew there was an opportunity to build the organizational rails that would support longer-term adoption. So, governance. We set up really, really regular steering meetings, but it was critical to focus these on providing perspective, transparency, and removing blockers, rather than falling into the trap of forecasting and tracking progress against a plan. This really helps you when you're navigating complexity and you don't know what's around the corner, is to take people on that journey with you. We put in measurement. This was measuring the business outcome, but not the technical vanity metrics that we often put in. We created tactical data that we needed right now. It wasn't exhaustive, but it got us started. And in parallel, we were able to work on the strategic data. We created a culture of collaboration where we enabled people to share data safely, rather than guarding it and remaining in silos and unused. With these principles in place, we were able to work in cross-organizational teams to build fully automated data pipelines that took the data from across all our submission systems into our marketing systems, and we were able to target the authors at the right time in their journey. And this is how we really reached those results. Once we created this strategic Band-Aid data set, we started realizing that actually this might be an asset for the organization and could be used in different areas, but we didn't want to put it out into the wild yet. We wanted to be sure that the data was suitable to solve a number of different business cases. So we built kind of a trivial pursuit pie. We already had a digital use case. We added a reporting one. We did an analytics one. And then we added an ML one. And we used this, so we found, and as we created this, we found more and more different consumer groups wanted to use this. I think this is fundamentally why I think data has to be approached differently now from when it was before. Because now the data that we traditionally use for reporting is being used for different types of use cases, and those use cases are evolving constantly. So just simply having a data lake won't solve our problems. What we ended up building, encapsulating all our use cases, was something called the Joint Submissions Dataset, something that is a product in its own right, something that is used continuously and extended and has operational demand as a product, something that could meet new emerging use cases by evolving as a product. But this meant that the organization, we would continuously need to fund it as a product. But that's where there was a bit of jeopardy. We've never done this as an organization before. We actually didn't have any of the funding mechanisms to deal with this. So we got to this point where we had this asset, but we might have to shut it down because there was no funding or a process to do it. So we went back to business value. Although we had metrics around levels of usage of the data, etc., we didn't really know what had happened with this data once we had put it into the wild. But once we had put it into the wild, we had a surprise. This data was being used across the organization for something like 40 plus of our strategic initiatives, and we actually hadn't known about it. This data asset had become a massive multiplier for the organization. And when we went back to the teams to ask about the data, it had become so integral in their process that if we took it away, it would be massively disruptive. This was kind of the stats we got from 21 teams. But it wasn't just that it was valuable to the organization. It was also that people were using something you had created and using it every day. And that gives you a real sense of pride, and the teams. So the message of my talk today, which is true for every technology project, but I think especially true for data projects, is focus on technology and you just get technology. If you want value, then focus on value. And there are 4 ways I would urge you to do this. Be hyper-aware of your own biases, both personal and within the organization, because an open mind finds opportunity. Measurement can be frightening, but also inspirational. Yeah, that first 0, it was scary, but then the only way was up. Measure continuously to understand your impact. Data drives engagement, but operations holds the key. You have a treasure trove of data already sitting everywhere around you. Just start using it and learning. Create connected cross-departmental teams. And I think as leaders today within technology, it is our job to support our organization to play well together and at all the different levels. I truly believe that if you focus on value today, you'll see impacts and results that you would never expect. Thank you.